The most disciplined thing you can do with your money right now is stop trying to be disciplined. You've probably started a budget at least once, maybe twice. Maybe you downloaded 3 different apps and color-coded your expenses on a Sunday night feeling genuinely optimistic. And then life happened. The coffee, the thing that was on sale, the "I deserve this" purchase at 10 p.m. after a rough Tuesday, and now that budget is somewhere in your phone, unopened, judging you silently. That's not a you problem. That's a brain problem. And understanding exactly which part of your brain is sabotaging your spending habits, that's what changes everything. Because in the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn why every budget you've ever failed had nothing to do with willpower, and a simple 3-part system that works not because it's smarter than your impulses, but because it's older than them. Here's what nobody tells you. Every single day you fight your own brain to stop impulse buying, you're losing ground you don't even feel. Impulse buying doesn't feel like destruction. It feels like relief. And that relief is costing you, not in dramatic, obvious ways, but in the slow, quiet way that a leak destroys a house. By the time you notice, the damage is already done. So let me introduce you to the 2 people living inside your head. The first one is modern, rational, wears metaphorical glasses. He makes the budget, reads personal finance articles, sets alerts on his banking app. Call him the planner. The second one is older, much older. He's been alive for 200,000 years and he has exactly one job: keep you alive right now. He doesn't care about next month's rent. He cares about the thing in front of him. Call him the caveman. Here's the inconvenient truth about these 2. When they disagree, the caveman wins. Every time. Not because he's smarter, because he's faster. The limbic system processes information before your prefrontal cortex even wakes up. By the time your "I should save money" brain forms a complete thought, your caveman already clicked add to cart. This isn't a character flaw. This is 200,000 years of survival programming. Your caveman brain evolved in a world where there might be more food tomorrow was genuinely uncertain. Hoarding now, spending now, consuming now, that was smart. That was survival. The problem is, it's 2025. The mammoth is a same-day delivery algorithm, and your caveman is still running the show. Traditional financial advice looks at this situation and says, fight your instincts, be better, have more willpower. That's like telling someone with a broken leg to run faster. The instruction makes sense. The solution is useless. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is the thing most personal finance content completely misses. Your caveman brain is actually your greatest financial asset. Not your enemy, your asset. Think about how hunter-gatherers actually stayed safe in the wild. They didn't resist eating poisonous berries through discipline. They didn't sit at the edge of dangerous terrain chanting, "I will not go in there." They mapped their territory. They knew which areas to avoid before temptation could exist. They removed the decision from the equation entirely. Nobody needed willpower when the poisonous berries were 3 valleys away. That's the insight that changes how you think about impulse buying. And it's the foundation of something behavioral scientists call environment design. The idea that the smartest behavior change isn't forcing yourself to act differently. It's building a setup where your instincts naturally work in your favor. Now apply this to your money. What if your bank account wasn't a pool you dip into whenever you want, but a territory with zones? Different terrain, different rules, different psychological signals for your caveman brain. Because here's what behavioral science actually shows us about saving money. People who automate their finances don't feel more restricted than people who budget manually. They feel less restricted because the decision was already made. The territory was already mapped. Your caveman brain can't want what it doesn't see, and it can't spend what it doesn't recognize as yours. This is the switch most people never flip. They treat saving as subtraction, as taking something away from themselves. But your primitive brain experiences it as loss. And loss triggers the same fight-or-flight response as physical danger. So every time you try to save by not spending, your caveman treats it like someone stealing from your food supply. He fights back, and he's stronger than you. But what if instead of subtracting, you just divided the territory before he could see it? This is exactly how the three-zone system works. And no, it's not a budget. Budgets tell you to track. This tells your brain to categorize, which is what your caveman does naturally anyway. Zone 1 is your survival zone. This is where your fixed expenses live: rent, utilities, bills you can't skip without consequences. The moment money enters this zone, your brain is trained to mark it as already consumed. Gone. Not mine. Just like a hunter who already ate their portion of a kill, there's no desire to go back for more. The caveman doesn't crave food that's already been eaten. This is how you stop impulse buying from touching money that was never really available. Zone 2 is your hunting zone. This is your discretionary spending, the money you actively enjoy using. Restaurants, entertainment, that thing you've been wanting to try. This account stays visible and has natural limits. Your caveman actually loves this zone. It feels like the hunt. There are things to pursue, resources to spend, and there's a visible boundary. Hunters carried only what they could use. When the bag is full, the hunt is over. Your caveman respects visible limits because he can see them. Invisible limits feel like arbitrary punishment. Visible limits feel like the natural order. Zone 3 is your ghost zone. This is your savings, and here's the brutal, beautiful trick. You never see it. It auto-transfers out of your paycheck before your caveman opens his eyes. Before any desire forms, before any spending decision exists. Out of sight means out of limbic system. Your primitive brain cannot want what it has no memory of having. Here's the part nobody wants to hear. This system requires zero willpower to maintain, but it requires one uncomfortable decision to set up. You have to pay yourself first, before rent, before the thing that's on sale. Most people do this last, if at all, which means their savings account gets whatever's left over, which is usually nothing, because the caveman spent it first. Paying yourself first isn't a virtue. It's a survival mechanism. It's putting the food in the ghost zone before the caveman wakes up. And here's where the scarcity instinct, the one that's been destroying your spending habits, finally becomes your ally. Because when your hunting zone starts running low toward the end of the month, something shifts. Your brain doesn't spiral into guilt. It activates conservation mode. The same instinct that made your ancestors careful, precise hunters when resources were limited. That instinct doesn't destroy your budget. When it's pointed at the right zone, it protects your financial goals. But wait, if this is so obvious, why isn't everyone doing it? Because setting it up feels like giving something up. Your caveman reads automatic transfer to savings as, someone is taking food out of my cave. That reaction is real. It's biological. And it's exactly why you've started saving before and quit within 3 weeks. The system doesn't fail because you're bad with money. It fails because you tried to introduce it gradually, giving your caveman brain time to resist, negotiate, and eventually win. which means the only way this works is to do it once, completely, before he notices. Here's the realization that tends to land like a punch. The people who are naturally good with money, they're not better at saying no. They're better at designing environments where no is already the default. Discipline isn't their superpower, their environment is. And the data backs this up. Research on behavioral economics consistently shows that people who automate savings accumulate more wealth over time than people with identical incomes who save manually. Not because they earn more, but because they eliminated the moment of decision. The moment of decision is where your caveman wins. Remove the moment. Remove the caveman from the equation. The three-zone system isn't a willpower hack. It's territory design. You're not fighting your spending habits. You're redirecting them. Zone 2 still lets your caveman hunt freely. He still gets to spend, choose, pursue. The thrill isn't gone. The damage is. So here's where you actually are right now. You understand why budgets fail, not because you lack discipline, but because they ask your modern brain to overpower instincts that are literally 200,000 years older. That's an unfair fight. You understand that your caveman brain isn't the enemy of your financial goals. He's the engine. You just needed a different track to put him on. And you know that the solution isn't to track more, restrict more, or feel more guilty. It's to design your territory once, automate the zones, and let your primitive instincts do exactly what they were built to do. Protect what matters, spend freely within limits, and leave the ghost zone completely alone. Now here's the question worth sitting with. If you removed all willpower from the equation entirely, if the system ran on its own, invisible, automatic, how different would your finances look in a year? That gap between where you are and where you'd be, that's not discipline you're missing. That's territory design. And the caveman already knows how to do this. He just needed a map. If this reframed how you think about impulse buying and money habits, subscribe. Because this is just the beginning of what happens when you stop fighting your brain and start working with the one you actually have.